We'll get started as soon as we go live. We are fully live. Hello, Lab Coat agents. Good afternoon from wherever you're coming from. I'm coming from St. Louis. Michelle, where are you coming from?
Clarksville, Tennessee. No longer live in the state of Louisiana. No offense to Louisianians.
Congratulations. Nashville market, right? Metro area, is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
It's exciting. Fun times. Good
It's
city.
amazing here.
Very cool. Well, today we are going to be talking about active versus passive prospecting on Instagram. And the question is, which are you? But Michelle, I think the better question is, I think a lot of people might need it to be defined. What does active and passive prospecting on social media even mean? Because I think a lot of people struggle with understanding that and effectively executing it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And that's really why I wanted to do this. Active versus passive prospecting. Um, honestly, I can't think of any other approaches, but they're really two very distinct approaches that we use in sales, right? Or just in business in general to help us find clients, quite frankly. But there is a huge difference between the two. So passive prospecting in theory is what we assume social media is, right? I can post something and it will do what it needs for me. It will result in people reaching out to me. Active prospecting is kind of the exact opposite of that, right? Where you're posting content is your passive side, your engagement is your active side. You're actively going out and initiating, you're trying to create conversations. And really I would say the knock on passive prospecting is that you leave the decision entirely up to the other person, the person consuming your content. You're waiting for them, right, to come to you. And well, yes, you can kind of target who sees your content if you're doing ads and other things, or you can target really who it's for. You're still ultimately relying on the recipient to respond. And so that's passive prospecting. And that really is what social media, a lot of people think social media is, especially Instagram, right? They assume I can post a piece of content. If it's out there in the world, as long as it's halfway valuable, people should reach out to me. And then they get frustrated, right? And Jeff, you and I both know this. They get frustrated when nothing happens, nothing comes of that. They reach out and say, hey, well, yeah, I'm not getting any business, so why would I keep doing it? Or nobody cares. They say they watch my video.
Jake, did we just lose Michelle?
So that's where active prospecting comes in.
Michelle, rewind. We lost you for a second when you said
Uh-oh.
I can shoot a video. I think you were going to say.
Say that last part again.
You were about ready to say video. So I think I can shoot a video is what you were saying when you were talking about
Yeah. So
passive.
passive prospecting is that piece, right? You're posting content, it's a video, you're producing something, you're putting it out, and if it's halfway valuable, the idea is that someone should be reaching out to me, right? Oh, I look at all how great my content is, look at how great my branding is. Now somebody should just be reaching out to me. Well, the problem with that is that's where everybody gets frustrated, right? Because that's not what happens. The reality is that passive prospecting in this form, producing and waiting, takes a long time to convert. It's a very long, slow play. It does work, right? And it does create subliminal opportunities. And I've been in business for 9 years, and the first 3 years were passive. I assumed that the passive approach would produce the result that I wanted. And that wasn't the case. So what I really want to do is talk about the difference between active and passive, and really what the 5 big reasons for the two of them are, right? Or sort of, I don't want to say reasons, pros, cons of one or the other. And ultimately why I believe, and I would imagine you believe, that social media and Instagram is designed to be both. It's really not designed to be one or the other.
Yeah. I was going to say that. And actually, I think it's interesting because if you asked me, and I'm the interviewer, you're the interviewee, I'm asking you a lot of these questions and I'll give my feedback. But if I had to guess, you're a bigger proponent of active. I'm a bigger proponent of passive. Neither is right, wrong, better, not better. It's just to each their own. And you kind of nailed it. Like active is, to me, active is going to be, it's going to yield faster results, but you're going to have to do it in a more aggressive way. So you have to decide if that's what you want to be. Or do you want to be more like the jab, 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 jab hook, or the give, ask, which is more passive to me. And neither, like I said, are right or wrong. It's just to each their own. What do you want to do? And for me, I've been passive since 2016, and I'm still passive. It's working very well, but I've also made it, it took years. It took several years. And so I'm curious to kind of hear your deep dive on this.
Yeah, and I want to be super clear and say I don't think one or the other is more relevant or more powerful than the
Agreed.
alternative. I honestly 100% truly believe that really you need both. I don't think you can survive a market that we're in or any really up and down if you're not doing both.
Yeah.
Well. And I say that carefully because I'm not trying to create or stir up anything, but what I am saying is that passive prospecting has its value. And passive prospecting for most of us, Jeff, you and I feel like don't count, right? We have really big brands. We have big reputations in our industry. We sort of are the outliers on that one because we can passively prospect by just producing content and people will still reach out to us. Why? Because we are in all these other arenas as well, right? Plus people, we know how to optimize our platform and yada, yada, right? We're doing all these other things. But the active prospecting approach is really, really valuable. And really what active prospecting is, and I might rebuttal you a little bit and say that I don't think that active prospecting is designed to be aggressive. If done correctly, I actually think active prospecting is designed to scale your opportunities. And what I say in-house with my team is more at bats, quite frankly, right? We need more at bats in order to generate more business. And that goes for every single one of you guys. In order to generate more business, in theory, right, you need more opportunity. If you have opportunity, you have ROI, as long as you're halfway good at converting it, right? And you don't suck at your job. So the reality is that both of them are super valuable. I don't think that passive is the right answer right now for most people. I don't think as far as the primary goal. Right now and today, if we're talking about 2023, we're talking about, darn near October of this year, in a really hard year for most people. There are lots of people that are out there killing it, right? But even the other day, I talked to a gentleman who's killing it on social media, killing it in business. He's done over 100 deals this year alone. He still reached out to me and he said, no, I'm not getting any messages in my inbox of people asking me for business. Like, how do I transition that? Right? Where's the missing link there? What am I missing? And we had a really, really good conversation about it. So if you're okay with it, Jeff, I'll talk about the active side of it here quickly. But in real estate, in traditional real estate, active prospecting is really 4 things. First and foremost, it's cold calling, right? It's also calling referrals, right? So you're actively calling a referral partner saying, hey, who you got for me, right? Essentially, or loving on that referral partner, providing something to them, creating or strengthening the relationship so that they continue to be a referral source for you. The third thing is networking events. We know our real estate agents love networking events, in-person events, client appreciation things, doing all of the things to be able to make sure that their clients know that they still exist. Loving on your 1 year, 2 year anniversary type people, and making sure you're really targeting those who you've already served in the past. Networking events also means creating new opportunities, going to local businesses that are having events. The ribbon cutting for a new business in town. Maybe it's your client that's opening that business and you're giving yourself that exposure, right? There's lots of different things related to networking. So I'm kind of lumping all of that into one. Door knocking is the 4th one, right? Darn near, in my opinion, really the most forward-facing form of active prospecting in the real estate community is going and door knocking. You're knocking on someone's door, hoping that they answer. And if they answer, you know exactly what your ask is. And you are proactively going to them. They don't even know in most cases you're coming, right? And then the 4th or 5th one, I guess there were 5. The 5th one is targeted mailings, right? So, hey, I bought the data for this neighborhood or for this zip code, and I'm targeting this mailing for that specific area. I want these people to get it. You are actively trying to initiate conversation with those people, right? But targeted mailings, I would say probably is the only of the 5 that kind of could be both. passive and active because you're not really doing anything. You're still sort of waiting on the response, but at the same time, you're also doing it in a really targeted manner. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 on that one. Would you add anything?
What was the first one? What was the first one?
Cold calling.
No, that was the okay. Then I missed one. Cold calling, networking events, door knocking, targeted mailings,
and calling referrals.
Referrals. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Carry on.
And so the piece that's missing, right? And I believe the part of the puzzle that does not exist is, for most people, is active prospecting on social, right? They're not using that as a tool for active prospecting. They're sort of relying on the traditional grassroots versions of active prospecting. Again, not a bad thing. It's just not scalable, right? In theory. So there's 5 things and really 5 differences between active and passive. And Jeff, I want to just like open forum them with you. I'll go ahead and screen share so you guys can see what I'm looking at real quick. Because I wrote all these out just because that way it's really easy for us to be able to talk through. We'll see if my screen share will work. AT&T has been outside fixing our lines all day, and it's been fabulous for the internet. Okay, let me know when you guys can see what I see.
Got it.
Good. Okay. So here are the 5 differences between active and passive, or I should say the 5 different pieces or differences that active and passive prospecting have. The first one is approach, right? So passive, is exactly what it sounds like. You're sort of sitting back and waiting, right? Your approach is to sit and wait. The active approach is obviously to go out and seek, right? Go out and find them, create the opportunity. Same thing with number 2. It's very similar. I think I just realized I spelled initiation wrong, but that's fine. Love me some good grammar mistakes.
You know what? That's an intentional mistake to try to get engagement, isn't it? Because you almost got my engagement, but you caught it yourself.
I caught myself. No, I really am fabulous at misspelling things. Sort of a superpower of mine, but guys, that's why I'm a journalist by trade, not a editor. So they have editors for that, as I like to say. But number 2 is initiation. So it really goes very hand in hand with number 1, right? In a passive approach, you're not the one initiating it. In the active approach, you are the one initiating it. So you are physically going out and taking control of that conversation or that situation. Number 3 is control, right? So control with a passive approach, you're not in control. You really don't have any say as to when or how someone responds or if they do at all, right? You're sort of hoping and kind of living in that hope land. Number 3, in the active side of it, you're in control, right? If you want opportunities for people to respond, you go out and you make them, right? This is where the 45-20 rule really comes in, along with number 4 and 5. So those of you guys who have heard Jeff and I together on Lab Coat Agents for long enough, you know that I've talked about the 45-20 rule many times. It's a big part of my strategy and what we teach our clients, students, and all of that. But to give yourself the opportunity to generate more conversations and to have more business, you have to be in control of creating the at-bats. I got an email from a client a few hours ago, and she literally said, I have to pause for the next month because I have so many messages in my DMs that I can't keep up. It would literally take me a month to respond to them.
That's awesome.
I really should screenshot it and put it in my stories, and I'd be happy to send it to anyone who doesn't believe me because it was that good. But that's the cool thing about active prospecting, right? Is you create this opportunity where you sort of have this overflow of or a business coming in. Now, obviously, she needs to take control and set those appointments and make the meeting happen. But the at-bats are there, right? And that's what number 3 really is all about, is who's in control of that. Number 4 is timing. So this is what you and I talked about at the very beginning, Jeff. Passive is a long-term approach, very much so. It's not an instantaneous gratification thing. It is a slow play. And on the flip side, active prospecting, when it comes to timing, is dramatically expedited. Quite literally, it can be, in a matter of a day or 2. It could be a month. It could be 6 weeks. It could be a year, right? It just, every person is a little bit different depending on how they execute. The thing about timing that is really interesting, if you study passive and active prospecting and really the psychology behind both of those things, and how most businesses that are great, right? If any of you guys have ever read Jim Collins' Good to Great, the book, if you haven't, you should. It's an incredible book. But what he talks about is that the great businesses are not just doing one thing perfectly every time, right? In a lot of cases, they have a system behind the one thing or the thing that you see on the front end, right? So what that means is that to the naked eye, oh, well, they just sell this one product or they just are really good at this one thing. But what's really happening is behind the scenes, they have a ton of systems and processes behind it. Sort of all the gears are working really, really extensively behind the scenes. And so that is, in my opinion, that analogy, right, proves to me and proves to what I've seen on this platform for the last 9 years, that timing is everything when it comes to this. And the best thing you can do on social media, specifically Instagram, is both, right? If you are passively prospecting, you're producing great content, and you are actively prospecting where you are going out and starting and having these 45 comments and 20 story replies on a consistent basis. I say every day, but my number one goal is just to get you guys to do it, period, right? Let alone if it's every day, great. But if you combine those two things, that's where the magic happens, right? So that's where not the timing is dramatically affected, right? Because if you have really, really crap content, and or all of your content is stock images from Google, right? I saw an account in my Slack channel from my team where they screenshotted it and posted it, and they're like, "Can you believe this?" It was literally nothing but Google stock images of like the red sold like easy button thing off the internet, and it was just like every picture was more and more and more of these, and we're all just like dying, right? Because we're like, how do they think that this is effective? Most likely they don't even know that it's being pushed out, right? It's being pushed out by somebody that they don't even know.
You know what I
But
call that? You know what I call that? Checking a box.
oh gosh, yeah,
Stop
100,000%.
checking boxes
That's
for
all
your
it is.
social
That's
strategy.
all it is. Um, so, but the thing that's wild, right, is when you're talking about timing, if you can combine really great content with active prospecting, you're off to the races. You're totally killing it. If your content sucks, let's just say it this way, right? It's all of the stock imagey content. You're paying like the $50 a month for somebody to just like post the same crap for you that they post for everybody else, right? And you also do engagement, right? So let's say you have crap content and you're doing your 45/20, which is very unlikely, but hypothetically, let's say that that's happening. It's not going to work the way that it should, right? Because even though you're actively prospecting and you're going out and you're doing what you need to be doing as far as initiating conversation, you're still going to struggle with getting conversion. You're going to struggle with getting people to respond to you, period, right? Because what happens is if I go to your content or I go to your account and I look at your content after you initiated a conversation with me and I'm like, whoa, what is this? Most likely that person is not going to respond, right? If anything, that person's going to be super turned off and be like, whoa, this is like, is this a robot? Like, what is this? Is this person just selling me something? Like, what's going on here, right? So it diminishes your opportunity for response, which is number 5. So your response rate goes dramatically down. But the thing I don't want you guys to miss is on the timing aspect. If you're actively prospecting and you have great content, which is what Jeff and I are talking about, right? If you have both, your response rate is skyrocketed, right? So your amount of responses and the opportunity for responses is just through the roof. And it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that's what I like to say to people is really, it's just a matter of when you can create conversion or when you'll see it versus, I don't know if I'm ever going to get it. And that's a huge difference.
Love it. The other thing I was going to say to how you're talking about these kind of being complementary is I also say the same thing applies to, you know, all of those traditional, you know, prospecting ideas that you put out there, or just ways that you put out there, the cold calling, the networking, the door knocking, targeted mailings, referrals, etc. That when you have a stronger social presence, that stuff starts to work in conjunction with each other. Because if you think about all of the pieces of technology that are listening to all of the things that we're doing, you know how it is. Like you're talking to your girlfriend about purses, and the next time you open up the internet, you know, a purse ad comes up, right? And
Crazy.
the same thing applies with us as humans. And so if you are, doing all of the things and you're being active with your prospecting efforts, and then you have a strong social strategy, all of a sudden, ironically, you start showing up more. It's really awesome.
And ironically, you start getting business off of it.
Isn't
Weird.
that funny? Isn't that funny?
Right? Interesting how that happens. I don't know why my other one didn't pull up here, but this is the slide, the other slide I wanted to show you guys. So we talked about this a little bit, but the other one on the active list that I must have accidentally deleted it when I screen shared, but is the door knocking, right? So that's the other active one. But on the passive side, there's some more examples for you guys just to understand kind of what they are. But your branding is also a passive approach, right? So what that means is, and my blood boils every time I think about this story, but I have a very close friend and client of mine who, before she met me, she spent $15,000 on branding.
Yuck.
I think I almost died when I was on the phone with her. I could not believe that, right? Especially with the types of organizations that are out there that will help with this. I was just mortified when she told me how much it was. But what I will say about that is your branding does matter, right? Put your money where it matters. And your branding matters, right? Jeff, you have yours behind you. You obviously have it also on your hat. For me, one of the things that I have spent a lot of time on is leveling up the name of my course, right? And the name of my company. Beyond the Method became trademarked officially in January of this year because, long story short, what I do is way more than just Instagram. It's a lot more than just the Instagram Power Method and what it was. So we officially spent the money to trademark the brand, right? So that it belonged to me and it really was what I wanted it to be. But the point of the matter is that counts as passive prospecting. I'm investing in something that's going to pay dividends down the road for me, right? Same thing with your color scheme and all of that, right? People often think that this is like just sort of, I can change it whenever I feel like it. Which is not true, but it definitely has an effect on your ability to eventually convert, right? Because passive, or the branding aspect to what you're doing passively, is designed so that it can continue with you as you grow and as you elevate. And as your influence grows, right, over time, you don't necessarily want to be constantly changing your branding. So I always tell people, this is why it doesn't matter who you work for, what brokerage you're hanging your license at, create branding that is you, because the idea is that it should be able to pick up and move with you wherever you go. I mean, I talked to somebody earlier today who's been with a brokerage for 16 years and she's finally switching to another brokerage that's a little bit bigger versus small town, right? It's a nationwide brand versus a local boutique brokerage. For her, that makes sense, but it took her 16 years. So imagine though how much branding she would have to undo if she had done that, right? Instead, she had made branding that was designed to transcend with her, which is very smart. Posting content, posting stories, obviously those count as passive aspects to what we're doing on social. Another one is automated email campaigns. So one of the things that I am a huge stickler on with anyone who I talk to about this is have a plan for after you generate the business. So if your goal in your DMs or your call to action is to get names and addresses so that you can put them on a drip for HomeBot, then you better have a plan for at the end of the month, how many names and addresses you get, what you're doing with them, right? Are you putting them into an automation? Are you calling them? You should be doing both, right? I had a client who at the end of her first month, she had 13 of them and she didn't do anything with them. And when she called me to say, hey, Michelle, I really want some ROI out of this, my very first question was, Heather, did you call the 13 people that I'm looking at your client tracker here? You have 13 of them. Did you call them? And she's like, no, I didn't know I was supposed to. What do you mean? Right? Like, I don't understand that. So long story short, you have to have a plan, which is where the automated email campaigns really come in. Most of you guys that have been in real estate for a while, you are pretty good at this already, right? You have a plan for when you meet someone at an open house, or when you're generating a lead from a Facebook ad or something, it goes into a funnel, or platforms like KV Core and some of these other CRMs sort of do it for you, right? Depending on where you put them. But customize them. There's so much value in the customization aspect of it because people want to feel like they're getting a personal message from you. But that does count as passive because the idea is that it works for you on its own. It's sort of evergreen and it's going to continue to produce for you. Postcards, flyers is really the same concept. I don't need to explain those. But Jeff, is there anything you would add to either list other than door knocking is supposed to be on the active side?
No, I think you've got a pretty good grasp on it. I mean, there's some other things, but I think that's the primary those are the primary strategies that I think most real estate agents employ.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to stop my share so we can switch back here to just us. There we go. So those are really the things that I want you guys to understand the difference of. And the big question, I think, is how do we go from passive to active, right? How does that happen? What's the approach there? And really that's why you guys are here, right? Is understanding how to go from one to the other. But that's really why I think you need to put an emphasis on both sides of your approach to Instagram. You can't do one without the other. The passive approach parts matter, like we talked about, your content, your brand, your consistency over time. And this is why, honestly, I think doing that is super valuable to be done before you insert active aspect, aka the engagement approach, right? Or the engagement part to it. Because if you focus on building the presence, building the credibility behind it, sort of that brand, the passive content, the value series, the videos, all of the things that need to go out. And the one thing I will say is don't forget the personal side. I know we say this all the time, but like that matters. But once all of that's done, and then you couple it with active prospecting, at that point, I feel like you're on a launch pad for massive success, right? Because if your content sucks and you're doing all this engagement, it's going to kind of sort of, I would say, fall flat. If I got a DM from someone and I clicked on their profile and it was nothing but stock images from Google, I'm not replying. I'm going to assume it's spam or it's a robot. So the active approach really puts fuel on the fire, right? So the targeted approach allows you to really find the client. So once your content is designed for the right client, the engagement aspect of the active prospecting approach allows you to not just produce content for them, but go talk to them, right? And that's the coupling that we're really talking about. So it puts your passive work to work. That's kind of a tongue twister. But it puts your passive work to work when you actively go out and can now start conversations with the people that your content is for in the first place.
So when you reference like the person who's putting her, account with you on hold because she's got so much business coming in, is there any things that you can share, like examples of some of the things that you're teaching or coaching her to do that are driving all of these results? Because I think that's what everybody wants.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's really where the 45-20 rule comes in. And honestly, there's so much there, but what I'll do is I'll show you guys this. So I'm going to pull something else up for you that I think would be super valuable. And I think that this is what the answer to that exact question is like, how is that happening? And this is what I will show you guys. And there's two examples as far as what the conversations look like. So we'll show you both. So how do you end up waking up to a multitude of messages in your inbox every single day, right? That's what everybody wants. They want to wake up, look at their Instagram and be like, wow, I have all these messages that need responded to. This is the dream, right? This is what I need to have happen. So the question remains, how do you make that happen? How does that even happen in the first place? And what really matters to, or how I should, what am I trying to say? How you get there, right, is by executing the 45-20 in a very strategic way. So how is that, and how is that strategic way? What does it look like? Your initial message when you send anything to anyone, right? So if I've never met you, Jeff, right, but I'm doing my 45-20 and one of my days, my job is to engage with anyone who has a real estate podcast. Let's just say that's my goal for the day, right? To engage with anyone who has a real estate podcast, because my goal is to get on more podcasts. Okay, well, if I look up the hashtag real estate podcast, I will find a ton of people who have real estate podcasts, right? Who are producing content about real estate through the podcasting platform. And so what I will do is I will send a message to someone, right? So I will click on their profile. I'll do a little bit of research, look at some of their content. One of the things I like to do, especially when I go for the ask as far as podcasting, is I see if they've gotten anybody else on their show that I know personally, or that I've been on that individual's podcast, or whatever the connection might be. Right. And then I leverage the connection. But the key here is how you ask, right? So in my initial message to anyone, and that is a unique example, but we'll just go with it, right? In that initial ask, or that initial message, there's three parts to it. And this can be one sentence where you ask all three or use all three of these parts in one very quick sentence. It could be 4 sentences, right? I'm going to show you guys the difference between the two because they are different, right? Each person is a little bit different in how they're going to do it. I'm a little wordier by nature. Some people are a little bit less of that, right? Jeff, you would probably fall into that category, like a little bit of a faster texture, simpler answers, whereas I'm a little bit longer, right? That's just sort of my nature. But the three parts, first and foremost, is acknowledgement, right? So when you're engaging with someone, you're responding to their story, responding to a piece of content on their feed. The very first thing you need to do is you need to acknowledge the piece of content, right? And what does that mean? If they're posting about their dog and they're going for a walk and it's sunset, don't just reply saying something like, wow, this is awesome, exclamation point. What is awesome? Like, what are you responding to, and how are you showcasing that you're actually watching what they're posting, or that you actually read what they wrote? Because if you guys have ever received anything where it's like awesome content, great video, and it's like it's not even a video, and it just makes me laugh every time, because you can tell that somebody's just got somebody blasting engagement out that it's just falling on deaf ears, and honestly it's more annoying than anything. So acknowledgement is the first step to making sure you get more responses from these messages that you're sending in the first place. Second thing is the subliminal business play. I was actually on a coaching session with my team on this, because this is probably the hardest part of every message that you will send to someone, right? Can you efficiently add a subliminal business play without sounding salesy, without coming across weird, without making it inappropriate, or like you're selling something right out of the gate instantly, right? That's not what we want. So that's an important piece. And then the third part to every message is a question. You're ending the initial touch point in the form of a question, to make sure that you set yourself up for the most opportunity to actually get responses. So I'm going to show you guys the two examples here. So there's, again, two different types of people. Example one is probably me. Example two that I'll show you guys on the next slide is probably Jeff. So if you guys read this, for all of you guys who are on here, I would love it if you commented in the chat box. Take 20 seconds and read these, comment and let me know. Is this a message, if you received, that one, you would read, two, you would respond to, and three, do you feel like it's salesy? Does it feel businessy to you? That's what I want to know. And Jeff, I'll let you answer while the others are.
I think the first one's missing a word. I think the hardest about homeowners, the hardest thing, the hardest part.
Yeah, it's the part. It's supposed to be part, I'm sure. It wasn't my message. These are examples, but.
Okay. So who would that be coming from there? Is that coming from?
So this top one was for an LO, or from, I believe it was from an LO to a realtor. Yeah. And this one was LO to LO at the bottom.
I like that. So go back. What was your question about the two?
So it's a three-part question. So I want all of you guys, and not just Jeff, but all of you who are watching, to answer in the chat box. Number one, does it come across salesy to you? Does it feel weird reading that? Number two, would you respond? And number three, combined with that, is would you read it and would you respond?
I think the first one, I smell a little salesy in it with the, but since I work with LOs for a living, that comment makes me, it's almost like I'm tooting my horn kind of thing. Maybe that's just me. The second one seems way more authentic.
Okay. So it's funny that you're saying that, because the top one didn't get a response. The bottom one did, right? So this is important to show you guys of how you can be subliminal and you can drop your business into what you're doing without making the person on the receiving end feel weird. Really important.
The first one didn't get a response. The second one did.
Correct.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because the first one made me feel like, okay, what's coming next? The second one seems more just authentic conversation.
Yep, exactly. And this is what we want. We want that really genuine, authentic conversation to happen, where that person responds and is like, wow, this person really actually just wants to talk to me. Yeah. Right. And that's what we really want. Now, this is the version number two. So this is probably more your style, Jeff. And again, I don't think there's a right or wrong style. Some people are just different, but those of you guys who start in this arena, you still have to drop the business piece at some point, right? But what happens here that we see is that if these are your types of initial messages, you usually bring up business subliminally in message 2 or 3. So if that person responds and then you respond again, typically that second or third response from you is where we can drop the subliminal business play in a very, again, to the point of the previous slide, in a very authentic way. But like the pancake example, right? This was a realtor talking to another realtor. This looks amazing. My friend swears to me that pancakes and peanut butter are life-changing. Have you tried it? Genuine conversation. You're acknowledging the piece of content, asking a question, talking about something that could initiate further conversation. But there's no business there, right? So that creates the need for you at some point to have to start talking about business or to drop the business piece to it. Oh, this is a restaurant I always go to with my clients when they're visiting in town. You know, if like hypothetically you're a military realtor living in a military town, right? That would be a thing. When my clients come into town, I always take them to this restaurant, right? That's a subliminal business play without being salesy, and you're still on conversation. And it's really important to understand this, guys. This is like sales psychology 101, right? The art of conversation. Are you able to connect with people? Are you able to use your intuition to be able to convert conversations? And it's a learned skill for sure. For some people, I think Jeff, you and I probably have it by nature, but for a lot of people, it's definitely a learned skill. These second two over here are just more examples, right? So this was a nostalgic example that we use, that we sent. So this lady posted a video of her getting ready for football season, and like preparing for the first game of the year, like she's putting a big party together. And so our reply to this person was, this made me so excited for football season this year. Nothing like cool weather, tailgating, football parties, and watching the game with friends and family. How do you think the Cowboys will do this year? Super genuine, very authentic, nothing salesy about any of that. And then what happens is we drop the subliminal business play in message number 3. So you guys can see that on her. This is the same person. She responds with a really lengthy, great conversational message. We then respond again with another question. Then after she responds again, that's where the subliminal business play is. Welcome to Dallas. I've lived here all my life, so don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. Where did you move from? Right? Subliminal business play. This girl is probably going to click on this person's profile, see that she's a real estate agent, connection made, right? That's where the value can be if done correctly. So it's a combination of the longer, like front facing messages to maybe a little bit shorter, less business or no subliminal play where you have to bring it up a little bit later. I don't know what your thoughts are on either, which you think you would be after reading.
I mean, I totally, yeah, you're right. That's exactly my style. It's authentic. It's real. It's not, I mean, there's nothing worse than receiving a comment from somebody and, asking a quote unquote genuine question and then following it up with, hey, I'm a real estate agent. If I can do anything for you, like there's nothing worse than that. That is, I'm saying this from a consumer's perspective. Like, no, in fact, I don't care how much I liked or worked with you in the past. The minute you start giving me that spam BS, I'm not using you. And that's just, I gotta believe, because I'm always putting my consumer hat on. And I think that's the mistake that most of us in real estate don't do. We're so self-serving that we look at it from the perspective of what we think they want. And that's not what they want. And I mean, I preach this all the time, but it's like, I'm always trying to put that consumer hat on and like, how do I not annoy them? And how do I genuinely be that real person to them that makes them want to, know, like, and trust me? And yeah, yes. I love the last ones for sure.
Yeah. And all of them work, right? Like you guys saw the longer form messages with the subliminal play in the initial message versus the shorter, totally talking nothing about business and then bringing it up later. It's really comes down to your personality and the way that you like to communicate. I'm a very straight shooter by nature too. So for me, sometimes putting the subliminal play in my initial message works. That's just who I am. That's my personality. Not everybody is that way. That's perfectly okay. We've had really successful clients do both. So to answer your question, Jeff, of like, what did my client do that she's literally taking a 30-day break so she can catch up? This is what we're talking about. She did 45/20 every day of the week, Monday through Friday. She is a VIP client, which means that we do everything for her, right? So we're doing the 45/20 on her behalf, Monday through Friday. But it is her job to continue the conversations and to get in her messages and continue them. But she has that many, right? I think she's had 6 or 7 actual business meetings. In her email, she said she thinks she has about 20 opportunities sitting in her inbox that she needs to tackle. That's phenomenal, right? Like I honestly could just be like, mic drop, I'm done, I'm out. We've crushed that. But the reality is I feel like it's my duty to create opportunity for more people to have that experience. And the way that happens is by understanding even how, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people go to webinars for, or a lot of people go to, in-person trainings. They're like, okay, well, I know I'm supposed to be doing social media. I know I'm supposed to be doing Instagram, but like, how, right? Oh, I'm supposed to be doing reels. How, right? Oh, you're telling me, Michelle, I'm supposed to be prospecting so that I can generate opportunities. How?
Yeah.
Right. And I think so many people, at least for me, I'm going to speak from personal experience. I go to conferences all the time, and there are lots of them where I walk out of there and I'm like, what did I just pay for that for? Like, I got this like rah, like I feel good, but like, what am I doing with that? Like, what is that actually going to help me do in my business? So, in 2023, especially, I've gotten very selective on where we go and what conferences we go to for that exact reason.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, cool. So, do you have any parting thoughts? I mean, I think this has been very effective, and parting thoughts, and where can someone get in touch with you if they want to become like that client who has more opportunities than they know what to do with?
Yeah. Well, Instagram is always the easiest way to get me. Berman Media Social. I can put that in the chat. I'm sure Jake can, and it'll be in the show notes. But I just put my Instagram handle in the chat box. But honestly, guys, my parting thoughts for all of you is active prospecting takes time. It takes effort, right? It takes putting the time and the effort into it in order to get the result. But there's so much value in it. And I don't think that any of us have an excuse to not be doing it. Yes, we're all busy. Yes, we all have things happening in our lives, both personally and professionally. But what really, really matters is, are we taking the time to create at bats? And that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, are you waking up every day with a plan to create at bats? And if not, that's the missing piece, and that's the hole that needs to be plugged. And honestly, like whether that's you, Jeff, that they need, or me, whoever, right? Just find the help that you need and get it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the average American spending 2.5 hours a day on social. There's literally no better place to reach and stay top of mind with your consumers and your friends, your family, your SOI. So if you're not, if you're going to keep making excuses or just not want to do it, honestly, I say this all the time, and I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but it's like, fine, good, more opportunity for me, because it truly is a place where so many of your colleagues and competitors are sticking their nose up in the air or have this crawl on their ass for social, and they're completely missing the boat. And that opportunity is only going to continue to grow. People are spending more and more time every single year as time goes on, and that's not changing. So whether you love it or hate it, it doesn't really matter. I hate cold calling. I hated door knocking, but for 20 years, that was the best way to do things. And thankfully, in my opinion, that has evolved. And here we are. And it's here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. So embrace or have a steeper hill to climb. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I appreciate it. Jeff, you're awesome as always. And
Likewise.
We'll see you guys next month.
You're awesomer. Take care.
Appreciate it. Bye.